Hello, Markus. Welcome.
Hello, Barbara.
Welcome again. Haven't seen you in a while in a podcast environment. How have you been?
I'm fine. We have been busy. We have been launching new products, new technologies. We have been quite successful on the market. So all good.
Good. I'm delighted to have you back. And let's dive straight into it. So we've been focusing on digital offerings throughout this season of the podcast. And your current role, you look after switchgear, which is the guardian of the grid. Slightly different from what people would perceive as a digital solution. In switchgear, quality and reliability are very much your license to operate. How does digital fit into this license to operate?
It is absolutely correct that switchgear, when it comes to the product, is hardware. However, also at the switchgear, we have quite some applications which need a digital support or a digital enhancement. And just to give you one example, it is what we call the point-on-wave switching. It is making the circuit breaker switch at the right moment in time to help the grid to have less overvoltages or to have an easier interruption. So also there we are working very much with our sister BU, here the grid automation, where the podcast is all about, in order to get these things better in shape and have a seamless working together between the digital solution and the hardware solution when it comes to the circuit breaker or the switchgear. Mm-hmm. When it comes to our main business, reliability and quality, or basically quality, is the foundation of our business. We have invested a lot in the reliability, basically making sure that the design of your products or your solutions is reliable going forward. We trained our people, we worked a lot into that direction in order to have a real reliable product right from the beginning, from its inception of the product. And as you know, we are now going a huge transformation from our portfolio point of view, from the SF6 portfolio going back to the iconic SF6-3 portfolio. There was a lot of work went into this one with our reliability program. Mm-hmm. However, when we look into the quality itself, we need also to make sure that the daily operations are seamless and are basically doing without major quality topics. Mm-hmm. And when we look into that one, we have sometimes the problem that we found out later that, for example, a supplier used the wrong material, or that we in the factory used to apply a wrong process, which is not according to our quality standards. Mm-hmm. And then the question is very often, what are the products in the field or still in the factory which have been impacted by this quality instance? And this is a very difficult question under normal circumstances to be answered, because our ERP systems is basically defining the part ID, but it is, for example, not telling us what is the lot of the material the supplier used in that specific product. This was one trigger. Another trigger is that we have been also, from a footprint point of view and from a business point of view, undergone a transformation. We came from a factory which has been completely vertically integrated, where everything was from the component until the final product was made in one house. We changed that concept. Mm-hmm. We started to introduce the feeder factory concept, where some key components in the beginning of the value chain are taken out of our normal factories and basically are consolidated in so-called feeder factories. They have less variances, but a lot of volume. And with this volume, you are able to generate economies of scales. And this economy of scale are helping you to get the cost down, but they're helping you also to get economy of scales on the quality, to improve the quality, because you are basically repeat the process much more often than you do it in one factory. And with this, which is a brilliant concept by itself, which helps us a lot also in scaling now our factories, we have, however, a more complex value chain. And the need for traceability, which I already explored in my first example, is getting even larger. And that was basically the inception point, that we wanted to look for a digital tool which in the end of the day is helping us to get a seamless traceability across the whole value chain, from the supplier to the service.
So before I ask you to explain in detail what this digital passport system is about, or DPS as we call it internally. So this DPS fits into the feeder factory. So the feeder factory concept happened first, this business change model, as an answer to the value chain issues that we were encountering, or do they come up concurrently? Does one sort of coexist with the other?
I would say it was somehow a coincidence, but we were already understanding in the very beginning of the feeder factory concept that this would fit perfectly to make the whole footprint change and business model change, which is a huge transformation inside our business, to make that one more traceable, more robust.
So the synergy was just obvious from
the synergy was obvious from the beginning.
Okay. So now tell us, DPS.
As a digital passport system, as we call it. When in the end of the day, you have a product which is leaving our factory, you have on that product a QR code. And when you have the right access, you will be able to trace with this QR code the whole history of the product and of all its components. You know exactly what material was used by the supplier. Mm-hmm. You know exactly what was the torque applied in our factories. And you know exactly also have then been the tests within the limits, what was the limit and how these things were working. So basically, you come back to the old dream I was just starting to explain in the beginning, to have a full traceability of the product. Mm-hmm. This means that every supplier who is working with Hitachi Energy in the high voltage business needs to be part of it. This is the license to operate along with us. So every supplier has to provide us with the key information on the material, on their measurements, on their dimensions, and they have to give that us in a digital manner. And also they have to put a QR code on their product or on their piece of paper which comes along with the product, mm-hmm. in order to start our process when we start to assemble our product. So we start our process basically with the income information of the suppliers, and then we start to assemble. We make also measurements on critical quality. We store that into the digital passport system, which in the end of the day is a data collector in the cloud.
Yeah.
And then we finalize everything in the feeder factory, put a QR code on our sub-assembly, mm-hmm. be it an interrupter, be it a pole, mm-hmm. be it a mechanism, operating mechanism. And then these things are shipped into the final unit, which is then basically producing or assembling the whole product, mm-hmm. with the components submitted or supplied by the feeder factories, and with the additional information coming from the final suppliers of the final factory. And then it puts everything together into a product, and everything can be stored there and then delivered to the customer.
Amazing. In terms of regulation, so our industry is very heavily regulated. I'm assuming there will be. Well, I know there are regulations already in place. Can you tell us a little bit about how something digital in this sphere can be regulated and how it's being done?
In terms of regulation, this is also so that, for example, the European Union is requesting, I think from July last year, to start sooner or later with a digital product passport, which contains information about, gives a traceability of the material itself in order to have also somehow eco-design standards across. Our process mm-hmm. was not designed in order to fulfill this one, because it was designed basically for the quality, but it can be easily used also for this one, and is basically then a foundation also to fulfill the reporting, which is requested from the European Union.
So we're ahead of the curve.
We are ahead of the curve because our offering already can be expanded to these mm-hmm. regulations.
Mm-hmm. And looking at the broader portfolio of the company, so something we've been talking about throughout this season of the podcast is lifecycle management of our products. How can DPS fit in? How can it help manage our products once they're out and they've been installed?
Our tool is seamlessly fitting also into the landscape of our company. Mm-hmm. So, and I would like to mention here and later on another one, two interconnections we have with our tool. The one is we are also having a direct connection to our so-called CCRP tool, which is basically a tool which collects all customer complaints to the product.
Okay.
So, and when a customer later on, be it an internal or an external customer, has a problem with our product, which never happens, but if it happens, then we can basically trace back directly to the production process itself and have directly the information what was used there. And we have also the interlink that later on, we also have all the quality related topics of that product into the DPS. So there's a direct interlink done between the CCRP process and also between the DPS, the digital passport system. We can also make it even more wider, and this is what we are doing with the asset management tool. An asset management tool of the company, which tells you basically where our product, what is the life cycle of the product, what it has been serviced on that one, and so on. Also, these are seamlessly interlinked, which means that a service engineer which goes 10 years later to our breaker, he or she can use the QR code and he has in front of him or her the service history, the production history, and the quality history of this product, which is a unique feature and also a key differentiator when it comes to traceability, but also when it comes to quality of the whole product in our business unit.
So Markus, you've explained what a digital passport system is, but how does it fit into a digital factory?
So when we started the digital passport system some 5-6 years ago, we started first of all to make exactly happen what I was just describing before. Basically making sure that we have a seamless traceability across the whole value chain, now including the service. When we laid the foundation of the digital passport system, we were thinking also, how could we expand the system? And one interface which has been always there is the interface between the digital passport system and the manufacturing execution system, the MES. When we started with the digital passport system, the MES was downloading the data, or was measuring the data, was downloading the data into the DPS, and the DPS was using that data then basically for the storage and making it available for our customers. And our idea was that the digital passport system with its structure, with its software, could be enhanced to replace the manufacturing execution system itself. So, and what we did is basically we developed the digital passport system further in order to replace the manufacturing execution system and to take that interface away. Additionally, we were also integrating more and more third-party software into the digital passport system, like software for the routine testing. We have to show and we have to document the routine testing of each and every breaker we are doing, and we store it now into the digital passport system through a direct interface between the supplier software and the DPS, which was not possible with the manufacturing execution system before. And last but not least, we were also now looking into that, for example, we have a torque control through the torque tools, which is basically stored and controlled and then stored the torque in the digital passport system. This is what we call a digital factory, which is basically further driving the digitalization and the integration of the digital tools into the DPS. So we were keeping the same foundation and basically make the whole concept much wider and also have now a digitalization into our factories, into our switchgear factories across the globe.
How does all this exciting stuff, so you started it in high voltage business unit, how does it fit in with Hitachi's wider long-term vision? Sorry, it's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question, but just recently, our CEO and our company have launched a system which is called HMAX. HMAX is basically using the data of the physical and digital assets with an AI-generated support. And our data, which we are collecting, are basically seamlessly feeding into the HMAX in order to make sure that we have the right foundation of all the data, which then are available for data analytics, for servicing of the products, and everything. So it is basically the foundation to have this HMAX work and provide the digital customer benefit.
Finally, one last question. So for the customers out there listening to you, what's in it for them? Why should they care about the digital factory or digital passport system? What have they got to gain? What can we give them?
We provide the customer with real data. We provide the customer with a seamless traceability across the value chain. This is enhancing the quality and the reliability of our products. And in addition with that, we are also feeding into the asset management tool of the company. So later on in 20, 30 years, they know exactly what was the status of our products when they were produced and what has happening in between. With one access to the QR code, virtually with one click, they see the whole history of the product. From the supplier, with all the critical to quality data, they see the assembly record, they see the quality record, they see even the servicing of the whole product in one tool, with one click. And last but not least, it is also feeding into the HMAX tool of the company, which gives an additional value through the digital and the AI applied to our products.
Who wouldn't want that?
Right.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful chatting with you again. And I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Was a pleasure.